This is Stay Paid, a sales and marketing podcast on a mission to help you close more deals and retain more business.
Welcome to another Silver Dollar episode of Stay Paid. My name is Joshua Stike.
And I'm Luke Acree.
And Luke, last week we talked about motivation.
Yes, we did.
So we didn't get enough time to
Are you motivated,
go
people?
over everything. And it's really kind of a cool topic because we're seeing more and more, like on our social media, people really being drawn to this
and I think it was
content.
Earl Nightingale.
Earl Nightingale.
Right.
Okay.
One of the first, motivational speakers out there. You can look him up on YouTube.
Okay.
Said 99% of a success in anything is all mindset.
99% of success. What was the quote that Eric shared this morning on the 5 a.m. call? It was a Stephen Covey quote. Yeah, so I think this is kind of cool. It says, motivation is a fire from within. If someone tries to light that fire under you, chances are it will burn very briefly. Which is a Stephen Covey quote, kind of talking like, hey, you gotta be able to generate your own motivation. In life.
He mentioned one of our reps. He's been with us for 20 years almost. This guy's an absolute killer, top salesman. Yeah. And he does not need anybody else to inspire him. In fact, if you try to inspire him, that's not what gets him going. He inspires himself. He wants some motivation every once in a while, but he has that inspiration from within. Yeah. It's like he just does it for himself.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So in part 2 of our motivation talk, in the first part, we talked about this idea of extrinsic versus intrinsic motivation. So extrinsic motivation is coming when you're motivated to perform a behavior or engage in an activity because you want to earn a reward or avoid a punishment. And then intrinsic, so it's external factors that are driving you. Intrinsic motivation comes when you engage in a behavior because you find the activity itself rewarding.
We found out that I'm motivated by power.
Well, that's a different types of motivations.
Just kidding.
So we did find that out. But we talked about, having to have a balance of both. It's important to have that intrinsic motivation where you truly enjoy doing what you're doing because you enjoy the activity, not because you're looking for outside rewards or to seek punishment. But there's also a value in extrinsic motivation. We're going to talk a little bit about where extrinsic rewards really come into play when we get into this book called Drive by Daniel Pink. So we'll talk about that a little bit on this podcast. Then we also talked about the 5 different motivations. So achievement, that was the one I got, which is people have a high need for achievement or seek to excel. Power, these people don't want to rule the world. But
these people are drug dealers, if you've ever seen the show Power.
Affiliation, which is what Ariel is, wanting a harmonious relationship. So they're driven by harmonious relationships with other people. Security, people that are motivated by security look for continuity, consistency, and predictability in their job. And then people motivated by adventure, they're motivated by risk, change, uncertainty. These are the people that you want to put on new projects. So a project that nobody's ever done before. You want to put these people that are motivated by adventure on those projects. So today we're going to talk a little bit about this idea of a book that I read years ago. And I don't know if you ever read a book and you think, oh, this is great information. And then you kind of forget about it and it comes back later.
That's most books.
So it's the book is called Drive. It's by Daniel Pink. We tried to get him on the podcast. I still want to get an interview with him. It's the surprising truth about what motivates us. And he talks about this idea of different tasks actually have different types of reward systems that work more effectively. So I think this is important as a business owner or in your own business when you're looking at it. These idea of algorithmic tasks. So algorithmic tasks are doing the same thing over and over again. Heuristic tasks are tasks where coming up with something new every time because there are no set instructions to follow. So two different types of tasks, ones that are a little bit kind of repetitive in nature, and then other ones that require creative thinking. And what they found was that extrinsic rewards can be very effective for algorithmic tasks.
That makes sense.
More or less, the more money, the more output that you'll get from somebody because they're motivated to just do the same thing.
Yeah, call.
They can actually have the opposite effect, these extrinsic rewards, on heuristic tasks, one that demand flexible problem solving.
Is it because it crushes creativity?
Well, so what they did was they kind of proved this out through this study that they did. And they've repeated this study, he said, over and over again for like the last 40 years.
Wow.
But basically, they call it the candle problem. And what they did was they got 2 groups of people. The first group of people, they said, we are going to measure how fast you do this because we want to establish a norm. We want to see how long it takes the average person to solve this problem. The second group of people, they said, we're going to time everybody. And everyone within the top 20% of fastest solvers will get $5, and the fastest person will get $20. And 60 years ago, this was a good amount of money, I guess, $5 and $20.
Jeez, inflation, baby.
The problem was what they did was they had in a room they had a table, and on the table was a candle, a pack of matches, and then a box of thumbtacks, right? And the table was sitting next to a wall. And so the challenge was you have to attach the candle to the wall without any wax dripping onto the table, right? So people would try different things. They would try and like tack the candle to the wall. They would try, all these different things. And what they found was, so the solution is you take the box and you tack the box to the wall, and then you put the candle on the box. And then that prevents the wax from
Genius.
It works a lot better visually.
Yeah.
But the idea there is what they found was when they challenged the people to do it fastest, they performed on average 3.5 minutes slower than the people where they said that they were challenging to just to kind of establish a norm. And the reason was because when your focus is on
performance,
when your focus is on is laser narrowed, you tend to get a little less effective than when you're just kind of thinking, right? And you kind of take a step back and you look on the periphery.
So you almost get tunnel vision.
Basically. And exactly. And the way that they proved this was they reversed the test with a new group of people, did the exact same thing. This time they had a pile of tacks on the table, they had a box on the table, they had a candle on the table, and a pack of matches on the table. And immediately the answer becomes so much more clear. When you see the box as something more than just a holder for the tacks, you immediately think, oh, I can attach the box to the wall and put the candle in the box. And they far outseated. So this time, the people that were rewarded with money far outpaced the people that were just told.
Because the task became obvious.
Yeah, because the task became obvious. They became laser focused, and it just became a matter of doing, less than a matter of having to think creatively.
That is wild.
Isn't that interesting?
It makes sense because every time I think about having to do something creatively, if I'm focused on like the outcome, it's like extremely difficult. Like even shooting TikTok videos today, because we now have another video that's hit over 1 million.
You're shooting for the reward of the views or whatever.
You're trying to shoot a video to go, okay, we have to shoot another one that's going to hit over 1 million views.
Yeah.
And you're like, I can't do it. I don't know what to come up with.
Yeah. So, I mean, this says a lot, like if you're running a business, how to kind of reward different people, those in problem solving or more creative, roles. That does not mean you don't need to cover the base needs. So there's still Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So like you still have to take care of basic needs: food, water, warmth, rest, safety, security, right? Housing. So this is still, what your paycheck reflects, right? Yeah. But it also means like, hey, putting a goal out there. And I was talking to the team about it. It's like, hey, look, talking about how are we kind of motivating people or driving people? Is it with bonuses? Is it with rewards? Whenever the task, the actual, what you're trying to get is a very creative idea.
Yeah, correct.
Versus kind of a repetitive.
Yeah, so you wonder how, and I wonder if Google and them have done any studies on this. You think of like software development or that type of, team, and you go, man, they have to think outside the box, think creatively, which is maybe in the industry why there's such a pain point of like deadlines, where it doesn't seem like it's really hard for tech teams to hit deadlines. Like this is common problems across all of my business friends.
Now, if the deadlines, I would say, have a set of rules, that's a little bit easier to narrow focus. But if there's no rules that you're kind of falling within, you have to allow for that. Google's a great example because they do the 20% time.
Okay.
So they allow their developers to work on whatever they want for 20% of their week. And from that, products like Gmail came out of that. I think Google Drive even came out of that product. Another company, Atlassian, who makes Jira, the Jira software, they do another thing where they do what they call FedEx days, which basically means you can work on whatever you want for 24 hours. The only caveat is you have to deliver. Like you have to deliver within 24 hours.
Gotcha.
And they've come up with some amazing products doing that as well.
It's almost like a hackathon. I think Facebook did hackathons.
Yeah. So kind of cool. Again, it really fulfills having those heuristic task kind of fulfills our psychological needs from competency, autonomy, and relatedness. This kind of leads into this idea of how to stay motivated. And I'll use another example. This is something Professor Claudia M. Mueller came up with this test and created this idea of the locus rule, or the locus of control, which is essentially the degree to which you believe you have control over your life. And what they did was they took half of a group of kids, and they gave them a three series of very challenging puzzles to these students, easy, a medium, and hard. They told half the kids, they didn't really kind of judge how they performed. They just basically told half the group, you scored very high because you worked very hard.
Yeah.
And have you heard this before?
I've heard you use it as an example on the podcast.
The other one was they scored very high because they were gifted. Right, so they established these norms or these ideas with these two groups of kids. Then they gave each group 3 more puzzles: easy, medium, and challenging. The ones that were told that they were smart spent more time on the easy puzzles, spent less time overall on other puzzles, and said that they did not find it enjoyable. The students that were told that they did well because they worked hard spent more time on the harder puzzles, spent more time overall on all the puzzles, and said that they enjoyed the experience. Because the reward wasn't like, oh, I'm told I'm so smart, I need to solve this. And if I don't, then I failed. Versus, no, it's the hard work that is actually producing the results. So they believe that they were in control. And it's the same thing that we talked about with growth mindset versus fixed mindset, from the standpoint of this idea of, if you believe that intelligence or talent is a fixed trait, and you either have it or you don't, you're less likely to work as hard than those with a growth mindset that think they can do anything if they try hard.
I think about having Evelyn right now, and I'm like, who would put their kids in that experiment? Dude, it reminds me about, there's this really
how do you like clean the slate after that experiment? Say, hey, forget everything we just did. Like,
that's not true. You're actually gifted.
You are gifted.
But there's this really popular story. I don't know if it's a YouTube short or not, but it's like the CEO did really poor in school, all this stuff, was failing out. Ended up, his mom forced him, or his dad forced him, one or the other, to take the SAT. He ends up getting an incredible score on the SAT, like one of the highest scores. Ends up going and getting accepted to a really, this prestigious university, goes on and becomes extremely successful.
Yeah.
Later on in his career, he finds out that the SAT actually, whatever, they made a mistake. And they sent the wrong scores to kids, and he actually failed, basically, the SAT.
Me.
But
That's
that
amazing.
one moment changed his whole perception of who he was.
That's crazy.
And took him down a path to where he became basically a CEO of a company or whatever. And you're just like, wow.
Yeah, so interesting.
Yeah, just because of that one moment.
Well, they kind of give an example of this in sales. So there was this guy, this YouTube video that I was watching. He was a door-to-door vacuum sales manager. And he said he found out that he could ask one question after a new salesperson had a bad day of no sales. One question to find out if they would make it. He said he would ask them, why do you think you had no sales today? And if the person said that they blamed the weather, the weekend, or the neighborhood, meaning all external,
they wouldn't make it.
He knew they wouldn't make it.
Wow.
They would spend less time knocking on doors. They would spend less time prospecting.
I would agree with that.
The ones who looked internally and said, oh, it's because I need to fix this or I need to fix that and I'll get better, were the ones that ultimately made it in sales. So
that's great. I'm going to start asking that.
It's a great question.
That is great. I've never heard that before.
So this idea of how to adopt an internal locus of control. So solving problems in your own life and then taking time to appreciate that it was your actions that solved the problem. Struggles so here's an example. If you struggle with falling asleep and you go, I can't sleep. It's this, it's that, it's the other thing, right? Ignoring those external factors and stop blaming it on everything else. Do your research, find out how to fall asleep better. Get more sunlight in the morning. Use your bed only for sleeping. Don't watch TV in your bed. Install a blue light filter. Ultimately, you're going to fall asleep easier. Tell yourself it was because of those actions that caused this, and you'll have developed an internal locus of control. So simple. Literally so simple. But think about the times in your life where you have blamed your inability to do something on, I can't go to the gym in the morning because I got to put the kids on the bus, or because I got to... I have to start work earlier, whatever that excuse is. What are those excuses in your life that are holding you back from finding that motivation in yourself?
It's because, what I've learned over time is excuses give you comfort.
It takes the blame off of you.
Exactly. It literally gives you comfort. And once you realize that, you might be comfortable because of the excuse you make, but you don't progress forward, and you literally end up in a bed of misery that you've made. It's terrible. Yeah.
All right. So there's some additional ideas on how to find your motivation and then how to stay motivated. Thank you so much for listening. You can head on over to staypaidpodcast.com for the show notes and the video of this episode. And if you like this episode, show your support by heading over to Apple Podcasts, drop us a 5-star review and a rating, and a comment.
Yes, please comment.
Rate, comment, like, subscribe, follow. We can see now.
It's basically an algorithmic task.
It's an algorithmic task.
Yeah, that you
just go,
rewarded
log
for.
in, hit 5 stars, subscribe, follow.
No creativity needed.
And the best way is kind of a heuristic task. Tell a friend. It requires a little creativity of how am I going to bring this up? I got to tell this person about this podcast. So go ahead. I don't have a dad joke. I forgot to pull a dad joke.
Oh, man.
Wait.
Yeah.
I have to give a shout out to someone.
Okay.
Yes,
fantastic.
please.
You're putting me on the spot right now, and it's hilarious because I thought about sending you this earlier and totally forgot. We had someone message in on our Instagram
I saw
for
this one.
Stay Paid. Armand. So shout out to Armand. Sent us dad jokes.
Yes.
I guess
remember
it was
one
yesterday.
of them. I do remember one of them.
Okay, I'm gonna steal the spotlight now.
Go
I'm
ahead.
gonna
Anyway.
do the dad jokes. I haven't read any of these, so if these are bad, it's not my fault. What kind of building weighs the least?
I know the answer.
I was gonna say you probably know. Luke, what kind of building weighs the least?
Weighs the least. I don't know.
A lighthouse.
Oh, so obvious.
Let's look for another one.
That was a good one.
Oh,
Good job,
there's only two.
Armand.
Why did the house go to the doctor?
I don't remember that one.
It had a window pane. That's a good one.
And then what did the house wear to the costume party?
Oh, I figured you.
A dress.
A dress.
A dress.
Yeah.
All right. If you want to get a hold of me, Luke, you can email us at podcast@remindermedia.com. Send us those dad jokes. And you can also find us on Instagram. We're at Stay Paid Podcast. We just had a second video hit 1 million views on TikTok.
Crazy.
So make sure to go to TikTok, and it's at StayPaid_podcast.
Crazy.
In 48 hours.
Yeah.
The video went.
Yeah, if you're not following us on TikTok,
Yeah.
if you're not, let me back up. If you're not on TikTok,
Luke's like
this
a
is the
viral
sign.
machine.
Yeah, we were shooting TikToks today, and Luke keeps going, I'm an influencer. I am an influencer.
There's the power motivation
We were like,
coming out.
"That's it.
That's all he needed.
It.
I told her, I said, my wife, Megan's like, shut up.
All right. For this episode of Stay Paid, I am Joshua Stike.
Guys, and I'm Luke Acree taking a sip of my drink.
I tried to stretch out. I saw you in the corner of my eye. Like, all right, I got to.
I was like, I was going to cough. Okay. So here's your action item from this podcast. You have to think to yourself, how are you actually motivated? You got to understand your motivation. And then really practically, you need to look at your team and your comp structures and your reward structures and figure out, do you have people who are task-based or are they functioning in creativity from a project standpoint? And make sure you've mapped out the appropriate motivation structures for those teams. Remember, the difference between top producers and mediocre producers in every business is top producers take action. Take action on that today.